Good evening, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Jackie Titley. I am the Manager of Training and Education at Rugby Canada. Welcome to tonight's webinar, our webinar tonight. We have a great guest. I'm very excited, Russell Earnshaw, and I'll do a bit of an intro of him in just a few moments. I'm also joined by Nathan Abdelnour from Rugby Canada, Manager of Referee Development, and he's going to co-pilot with me tonight, have a bit of a conversation here. Again, welcome to everyone. The Rugby Canada webinar series hosted by or put on by DHL. We're very glad to have everybody here with us. As a reminder, all of our previous webinars are on the Rugby Canada YouTube page for your viewing. They've all been uploaded up to date. I will also remind everyone that while the ban on rugby activities has been lifted, I would encourage you to communicate with your provincial union before getting out on the field, because unfortunately we do have a few more steps and boxes to tick before we can get out there. So really exciting times. Things are moving very quickly. Make sure you touch base with your club executives and your provincial union before you get out there and train. So tonight we have Russell Earnshaw, who is the co-creator of the Magic Academy, a very interesting, very engaging resource and platform for coaches to take a different look at how they approach things and how they build their practices. Rusty has been described as a journeyman rugby player. We were just discussing his tour of various clubs in Europe, and certainly seems to be a jack of all trades and one to have very interesting conversations with folks. So we're looking forward to being asked some challenging questions. You yourselves will be asked some challenging questions to reflect on. And there is a questions function for you to ask us questions. Happy to keep those coming and keep the conversation going. So Rusty, I will send you the reins, and away we go.
Thank you, Bian. Cool, thank you. You've got the questions. GoToMeeting would like to. It's asking me if I can record this computer screen. Cool. Is that? Can you see it now? Am I sharing now?
Not yet.
Is that sharing?
No, I'll send you. You are a presenter, but.
Good. We should have practiced this section, right?
Yeah, on your control panel, there should be a bit of a play button under the sharings tab.
Let's try that. It's the cool bit where it's enough. So there should be. Sorry, I'm hoping that show. When I press show, does that show me now?
It
says sharing on me. That's my only. That's all I can see.
Technical difficulties, folks. Not a good start.
We so could have done this, couldn't we? Change present. It says that I'm presenter, so I want to click show. Stop sharing screen. Any clues, any ideas on what I could do?
I'm going to change presenters and then give you.
Yeah, let's change it one more time.
Sure.
Are we there? Is that us? Are we sharing now?
I think we've got that. Let's try and end it back with you there, Russ.
Screen. Is that happening? No, oh my days. Is that my screen?
No.
Kind of says it is.
Rusty, why don't you throw the presentation into, well, you said it would be difficult to do it by email, eh?
And I'll try and send it to you now. It's exciting for everyone. Have you got some of your questions there, Jackie?
You're just on mute there, kid. Right, folks, bear with us. We're almost there. Yeah, Jack, you're
We
still
are.
muted, unfortunately.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you, Russ.
I can.
There we go. You're good.
Oh, we have a couple comments from the peanut gallery here.
If Tackle's on, Tackle will be. He'll be
Well,
killing
this
me.
one is saying, you know, we know why you're buddies with Moff now, Graham Moffat. 'Cause, there's
Yeah,
some
that's
technical
fair.
difficulties, I think.
I am trying to send it. It's taking a while. So, is there any other way? It says I'm sharing. That's the weird thing.
Yeah, it's bizarre. We did have this on a
Do you have one
previous
more go at it? Well, I mean, yeah. What are you thinking I should be? It says to me, so I'm clicking on the kind of share screen thing, and it's saying I am, but
No.
Well, Rusty, in the meantime, while we're waiting for that maybe to upload or send, do you want to give us just a bit of an overview of the Magic Academy and how it came to be?
yeah, well, yeah, cool. It was really based around trying to, I guess you have a certain number of touch points with coaches a year. They're not that often. So I was just chatting to Amy Price earlier today, and how many coaches, the coaches you see the most, how many times a year do you see them? And she said 12 times a year, so once a month. And reality is behavioral change. I've been promising to go on a diet for 2 years, and it takes time. And so how can we connect people up in between kind of meetings and stuff like that, and stay connected and share stuff? So that was the kind of reason why. I mean, look, I'll talk through a couple of slides. But thanks everyone for joining in. I'm going to talk through some stuff. I'm going to go for it. Those that don't know, yeah, journeyman rugby player, father, husband, working hard on that. Kind of obsessed with people. My favourite day of the year is when I go to the township in Kalisha in South Africa, because it reminds me what sport's about. It's about joy and connection and being human. And then I guess where I think I am with my coaching at the moment, and I'm sure lots of people have been watching The Last Dance and they're getting pretty excited about the stuff going on there, and lots of people would want to be Phil Jackson. So I think there's a few super coaches in the world. Liverpool just won the league title tonight. I think Jurgen Klopp is one. I think Scott Robertson's one. I'm sure Steve Kerr is one. So those kind of people that can connect, that understand other humans, and it's probably a bit more meta than us mere mortals who seem to spend a lot of our time on the tech stuff, when the reality is it's not that important if you can't make sure people are the best version of themselves. They don't feel confident, and all of that stuff. So I guess that's probably a real quick overview of where I am. The other thing is, and I don't know, Jackie, did you prepare those questions for the polls?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Not in polls, but we certainly have them, and we can get some folks chiming in for sure.
Let's go. First question: what percentage of your players do you know with absolute clarity how they like their feedback? So maybe get some people to put in the box like what percentage. So if you've got, I'll do the maths bit. If you've got 20 players and you know exactly how 10 of them prefer their feedback, then the answer is 50%. If it's 0 out of 20, then the answer is 0%. So I'll be curious as to what people put. I'm still sending it. I'm really sorry. Told you it was a big file. So it's still got 4 minutes to go.
We've got some 10%, 20%, 25%.
Oh, nice. That would be relatively high, to be honest.
Below 10, so, I've got a couple below 10. We've got some confidence here, 30%.
Nice. Look,
Yeah.
and it's probably just for us to think about, like, now we can agree or disagree on whether we think that's important. We can probably all think about when we were coached, were there some coaches that kind of, we said, oh, they kind of understood how to speak to me, and there was some that didn't. So, I mean, it's up to people whether they think it's important, but I think that's probably an important, when I talk about knowing individuals. So the Steve Kerr clip of him speaking to, I can't remember the player, is pretty viral, isn't it? Around and saying, look, I used to be like that when I was your age. I love the fact you do this, and just his arm around him would really understand him on an individual level. What I notice, and I speak to lots of players, is the answer is no, and no one's ever really asked them, and it's not a difficult question to ask, really. And you could facilitate in loads of ways. You could get the players into little groups and go, look, have a chat amongst yourselves, see how you all prefer your feedback. And for me, there's probably an element of needs and wants. So there might be someone who wants lots and lots of information. So this will come in with the gamification stuff. However, the reality of the game is different. So we might need to be moving them from their wants, possibly a little bit more towards their needs. So yeah, that would be something to think about. So I guess, yeah, those coaches that exist. Next thing I'm going to signpost people, I'm going to say, look, we're going to explore gamification stuff. I would love if, and I can't see the chat, but I'm sure you guys can tell me, if anyone's been trying any stuff with it, to kind of put it in the chat and go, yeah, I've tried it. It's been cool. I've tried it. Yeah, I've still got some more work to do. I've tried it. Rusty, what are you even thinking about? Type stuff. So probably just to gauge where people are in terms of gamification stuff. And I'm gonna work
and maybe for those folks who, they might be doing it, but they don't know they're doing it. Can you give us maybe your definition of gamification and what it really means?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and thank you, Jackie. And now I know that you need more information than I would normally give. Look, I stand on other people's work. So James G, who I said I spoke to today, has got a really amazing piece of work called, I think it's called Video Game Design and Good Learning. And Amy Price has kind of interpreted some of the work and sifted it down and translated it really nicely. So it's really, what are the principles that sit around the reason why? And I guess another question is, how many people here play video games or have kids that play them? The reason why we are into video games. So in his piece, he actually talks about biology as a game, and the people who are playing the game of biology. I actually love that analogy of, you're not like just, as we often did, learn by rote. You're working out the game of biology. You're kind of navigating your way around and seeing how stuff connects. And so some of the examples would be, and I'm sure people are doing some of this stuff, would be like having different levels. So different levels allows you to kind of build confidence early on, get through some levels, and then start to understand mastery and struggle and get past it. Another thing might be superpowers. So in Mario Kart, as an example, if you're coming at the back, apparently like something boosts you forward, and if you're at the front, you'll often end up on a banana skin. And so how are you using, now whether or not you're calling them superpowers, but the kid that's struggling, what's the stuff that's allowing them into the game? The kid that's flying, what's the stuff that's giving them challenges? And you might think of that on a macro scale. So your team are beating another team easily, then what's the banana and what's the whatever it is that boosts you? So yeah, I'm just curious, are people playing around with some of this stuff? As we speak, Justin, it's getting exciting. We're down to just 2 minutes to go. It's a slow internet in Bristol today.
We do have some comments. There are some folks saying that they're definitely engaged in this. One gentleman saying that he's wanting to try harder to have various levels to really have a progression. We have another comment around really enjoying the playfulness and problem solving that
Nice.
with gamification, and then an interesting one might be interesting to discuss about not sure video games resonate well with adult women, and or maybe aren't as relevant, I guess is the commentary. So I think that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I've been
About the
fortunate to have
differences in
coached
gender.
across probably both sexes and across all kind of standards of the game. So the coached it probably from under 8 to England over 45 men's touch. And I'll be honest with you, the men are worse at it. So sorry, Nathan, to break the news to you. They just want to be told what to do, whereas actually the thinking stuff and the problem solving. So actually, probably the most fun I've had is is the England women's over 27 touch. Oh my days! Like, they are challenging me as a coach. They're setting tactical problems. They're picking superpowers. They're deciding the levels. I'm like, my mind is blown by these women, to be honest. And then I go to the over or under 45 men. It's like, is there a brain between anyone? Like, are they sharing a brain, the people on this pitch? So the thinking stuff, and maybe it's just different language. So once again, I'm thinking about the principles of levels, but you might sell it differently. You might not use the word superpower. Because I've had strong feedback from every group really, to be honest on it. And probably the biggest aspect to it that's changed and so Nathan, that should come across to you now. Probably the one that's been the biggest change to me is pause. So people might have heard me talk about this. So in a computer game, the kids can pause the game, and so they control the pause, not the coach. So that's it's a bit strange, isn't it? Because normally I stop the practice. What's going on? How are they stopping the practice? So I would scaffold it and go, look, give me some reasons why we might pause the game. And they might say, tactical stuff, to get some water. The opposition are about to score. We might want to freeze the game and move some of our players around. So it's about getting them to think. And probably the two extremes I've seen on that are with the 45 men touch team, they didn't know how to pause the game because they're just so socialized into listening to coaches. The under 9s are like, oh my God, Rusty, we love pausing, but they're pausing every 3 seconds. So it's like, with the under 9s, I had to go, cool, we're going to play a 10-minute game. Both teams have got 2 pauses. Once you've used them, they're gone. However, you need to use both your pauses if you want to win the game. I actually did it with a coach. So I said, look, you've got it's a 15-minute section here, and you're allowed 3 pauses. So you're allowed to stop the game or stop a group of people. They'd all gone in 60 seconds. And it was just to get people more mindful of stepping in. An example I just said to James G today. So my mate is a teacher, and he said, Rusty, no one pauses my lessons at school. So he put a pause button on the whiteboard. So he just drew one in ink. And he's like, it's changed my lesson. Like, people are just like, pause, hang on, sir, I don't understand what you're talking about. Could you explain that better? Getting up and hang on, pause. Hang on, the whole class hasn't understood that. And he just said, suddenly we got a completely different learning environment from like drawing 2 lines on a board and putting a circle around it. So, that's the type of stuff. Any other
Rusty,
messages?
yeah, you'd mentioned working with kind of the under 20 England women and a couple other high performance programs. Are you seeing gamification being used at the higher levels of play and maybe professional clubs in Europe and in the UK?
In short, no. I don't think the coaches are as engaged in learning as people in development environments. So the probably the place I'm seeing it the most is at academy level. So, football, rugby academies are starting to play around with it. The strongest feedback I've had, I had a couple of England sevens players, that's not under 7, that's 7 aside, tell me we'll be training like this all the time. So I guess it might lead me on to my next question. And so the one thing I think it does do is give a real psychosocial element to training. So maybe if people could put in the box like what percentage of their session plan is about the psychosocial, so about the mental stuff and also the social and the connection. So what percentage of training are people planning around that would be my next question. How's my download going, Nathan?
I have it downloaded and am just going to open the PowerPoint now.
Oh mate, we're on fire.
Yeah, mate. So we'll get through this question, and by the time we've got that feedback and you've been able to expand on it, we'll probably be ready to go.
So yeah, what percentage of your lesson plan, let's call it that, or session plan is based around the psychosocial stuff? Nathan, can you hear Jackie?
That's me. No, it's me. It's me. I said
now.
we had a couple 20s, 25%, a bit hesitant. I have one comment, kind of cool. It was 0, but then took some training, some multi-sport training, and that I was chatting with you about earlier, Rusty, training around basic mental skills, and so planning on adding some of that into their sessions. Another 25%.
Yeah, and once again, it depends how important we think it is. I think it's the most important component of performance, and it's the most important component of development. So I think it might just be as simple as just getting to understand each kid and what motivates them and how they want their feedback and what's been their, just being kind to kids, stretching them, recognizing their strengths, engaging some peer-to-peer stuff. So I would recommend, I know we just spoke about the Jean Coté work around the kind of behaviors of transformational coaching. I think it's a phenomenal piece of work. That I love the fact that he's like, well, it's the same in development as performance environments. So it's no different, just looks a little bit different. So yeah, I mean, look, so possibly something to consider. The reason I asked that question is I actually think the gamification stuff creates loads and loads of psychosocial opportunities. Probably one of my favorite ones is, and is a superpower. So it was Isle of Man. The kids got to a superpower, and there was a girl, Sarah, who was it's her first rugby session. I didn't know it was her first rugby session, and she was doing some cool stuff. And it was mixed boys and girls, teenagers, so it can be quite a tricky group actually. And I said, cool, well, what do you want your superpower to be? And one of the boys said, Sarah's doing really well. It's her first time. I didn't know it was her first time. And so, Rusty, can we change the rules so she gets more opportunity to do that? Because I kind of think it's cool. So we've got like one of the boys saying something nice to the girl. I mean, that's mind-blowing for me, for starters. Someone being recognized for their strengths and being given opportunities to do it. And I'm thinking, Sarah is 100% coming back next week. Like, he's going home saying this is the best session she's ever done. And it's not me that's done it, by the way. It's definitely, but it's I guess another thing to think about is what percentage are you planning peer-to-peer interactions into your training? Because the evidence would say that they're more powerful than the old man from Middlesbrough. So how are we going to factor them in? So we've got some slides, Nathan. It's exciting times. Well, that's just me. I've kind of introduced myself anyway, so we can move on from that. We can move on. Yeah, a couple of slides on there, I think, are probably relevant. So the house is about, I think something I'm starting to discover in coaching is you don't want to break in around the back and have to sneak in to get into the basement. You want them to open the front door. So how do we find ways of doing that? The bottom right is the bus stop. So which bus stop are people at and how do we help move them on? So no one's ever at the same bus stop. They're all at different stages and different stuff's going on. But for me, it's the individual attention that's the gold, quite frankly. Top right, Matt Turner. Still haven't worked out how to coach him. Working on it. Understand how someone can be Superman or Superwoman, but also right-hand side, what makes them wobble? So, like, what is it that stresses people out, and how can we support them with that? My kind of go-to is I just tell them that when you smile, it releases all the best stuff in your body, and so next time you think the referee is being annoying, maybe just try smiling, and I'll just keep a record of how many awesome smiles I see. So it might just be as simple as that. So that's
Rusty,
yeah,
do you keep a record of all the smiles to see how many times you thought your players found the referee annoying? Is that why?
Well, I actually did it with England handball. So I was in a session and I said, look, I'm gonna, what would be, so I had the conversation with him. I said, look, what would be useful? And he said, well, why don't you keep a record of every time I smile and every time I don't smile, and we can discuss it afterwards, which I thought was cool. Give me some kind of function on the sideline, and I could just kind of watch him and notice him. And probably one of the most important noticing moments really is when stuff isn't going so well. So, and just see how he then reacts, and then just had a conversation. Look, was it helpful? Did you feel like you stayed in the moment a little bit more? Because what I definitely noticed before was when you were getting agitated with the referee, it wasn't really being that helpful for you with your game. Actually, something I did with Birmingham City that came out of another superpower conversation was, and the kids in the football academies, they just moan at me when I ref. I mean, it does my head in. They're just modeling their parents' behavior, quite frankly, and some of their coaches. And so what I agreed was one team would get a superpower, but they they would only keep it if they didn't say anything to the referee. And at the end of the game, they had to give feedback to their peers, i.e. the other team, on their behaviors and how useful they thought they were. So actually we had, I was quite stressed thinking this is going to be, but actually it was really powerful that, you know, that Jackie told Nathan that, mate, every time you have a go at the referee, it's actually putting you and your teammates off the game. You look a bit ridiculous, Nathan, to be honest. And that was like a cool conversation. Then we had a discussion around, look, who has solutions for these types of problems, and yeah, then we just discussed them. But once again, it comes about from the gamification, the practice design around gamification. Should we go on?
How old were those kids, Rusty? Out of curiosity.
14 and 15.
Cool.
Teenage boys in an academy, like they are pumped full of testosterone.
Well, and I think it's interesting for that age group to have the opportunity to maybe express and have conversations that are a little bit more maybe about emotion and about behavior and things like that. They may not get a lot of opportunity to have those conversations. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and the beauty for me is that when I go into a football academy, I don't work in a football academy, so right. I don't have a badge, I don't select, so can probably be possibly a slightly different feel to stuff. Who knows? Signpost, we're going to go and explore some stuff in this session. Some of it you might go, Rusty, you're crazy. Some of it you might take, I'm pretty chilled. I'll follow the energy. Let's go. What's next, Nathan? Cool video games. Just look, the reality is grown-ups are playing them, kids are playing them. There's a reason they struggle. There's a reason my son is like on Fortnite or whatever it is that he's on. I've probably got to stop getting so agitated by it and start to understand it. And interestingly, James G, who's the godfather of all this stuff, I spoke to him today and he said, I didn't play a computer game until I was in my 50s. She's pretty cool. Just said, now I play 4 hours a day.
Yeah, Rusty, this might be better. I was going to say this question might be better for the end of the session, but I was wondering if you've noticed, does there ever come a point with a video game where you decide, you know what, I actually need to delete this off my phone because it is distracting me to the point where I'm not actually doing the things I should or need to be doing? Is that something similar? Like, have you ever seen or experienced anything like that when you've applied gamification to a training session?
No, because I think that well designed. So as an example, again, Birmingham City, what are the themes you're working on? So goal scoring, cool. So we came up with a scoring system of 1 point for goal, minus 2 points if you got in the opposition half and you didn't score. That's goal scoring. Like there's a consequence to not scoring. They're on minus 10. Like their heads have gone. They need a pause. They've got to sort their lives out. So, and also we can adapt and co-create stuff. So actually it might be that, so I will explain a bit. I would have some core games I play, but nothing would ever be the same because the reality of all sport is you never step in the same river twice. So in rugby, no one's ever played the exact moment ever again with the same people in the same places, doing the same things, same score, same weather, same time on the clock. Every single decision has context. So I think by co-creating and getting them to be the designers, then I don't think my feedback thus far is they don't get bored of it. The other thing I think it ties in nicely with, and I'm sure people are playing around a bit with it, is like just storytelling and theming. So Newcastle Falcons Academy, who for me will be probably the best academy in the country, they themed a whole kind of campaign around Call of Duty. So I don't know much about Call of Duty, but the players were earning like prestige badges. So they play a game, and it wasn't about the result. It was about we set some targets and to achieve our prestige badges. So an example of one of them was that one player to clear a ruck. So it was called one shot, one kill, and the goal was to get 20 Osocks so one shot, one kill in a game. And if they got 20, they got there's different grades of prestige badge based upon what they did. And Fletch, who I work with, his son was part of this process. And he said they played one game and they didn't achieve the badges. And so the coaches said, look, what do you want to do? Like, we're miles away with the badges. They went, we need to keep the same for the next game. We need to win those badges. 18-year-old kids trying to win imaginary badges. Who'd have thought? So, but once again, I also think that's the skill of the coach, and it's probably the skill of the coaching group. So I would know some coaches that wouldn't be able to be part of that authentically. And that might be actually, so one of my friends is currently, and this is a cool story actually, so without naming him, he's done a few things on Twitter around storytelling. He's a teacher. So, and Ronan O'Gara was with the Crusaders, and he watched Scotty Robertson do all his theming and storytelling stuff. He's come over, he's coaching in France. Ronan O'Gara saw what he'd written on Twitter, and so this guy is now helping them theme next season in France, because Ronan O'Gara wouldn't be the man to do that, perhaps. But I actually think it's quite cool, because I said to him, well, you could pick 5 or 6 cultural architects, or they could, and you could influence through them as opposed to the head coach, which I think is more powerful anyway. So perhaps what I think I'm trying to say is if you're not, this doesn't feel natural to you, then have a look around at who it might be, who might be the right people for it. So yeah,
it's like any other coaching staff, right? You know, you can't be an expert in everything. You got to know your gaps and bring people in to fill them.
Yeah, 100%. So look, this for me is the benefits: thinking players, autonomy, problem solvers. It'll allow differentiation. So in the story I said about Sarah and the superpowers, beat the game. So for me, beat the game is how can we find ways of tactically winning the game? High levels of engagement, collaboration, mastery, creativity. Like kids have come up with unbelievable stuff. I'm like, I would never have thought that. Where's that come from? So, and that's been like, and some of that's, and at the same time, I also have moments where the kids do my head in, if I'm honest. So, you know, at the football one at Birmingham, I'll come up with a superpower. Every time our team gets the ball, their team all have to lie on the floor and we score a goal. No, we're not playing that. So, so you can have this one or this one. You've got 10 seconds to choose. So what I would always have in my mind, so 2 things, Laura Mossman, number 1 behavior for coaches to dial up around motivation is choice. So But I'm not saying to my daughter, what time do you want to go to bed? I'm saying, do you want to go to bed an hour and half an hour? I would always have some choice in the back of my head. Yeah, just in case. But the beauty of me asking the players is I'm gradually starting to add stuff that I would never have dreamed of adding. So, you know, it's players that say to me, "Oh, Rusty, can we get 5 points if we make a defender fall over?" I mean, because it's the ultimate sidestep. I'm like, at no point in my rugby career was I ever thinking of making defenders fall over. But I'm definitely going to steal that with gratitude. Thank you very much. So I would often, you know, and the challenge is sometimes is people go, oh, yeah, but it's just, I'm thinking, well, which of these wouldn't you want your players to be able to do? Like, is there anything here that you don't think is really important? Reality is no. Well, what I notice actually, so, and I would tend to try and notice when I come and watch people train or say, look, get a game going, is they're probably not thinking that much. They're definitely not problem solving. They possibly need some support with problem solving. So to understand how we go, well, hang on, we've noticed that Jackie's team have actually now gone from a, you know, from a drift to a blitz. So what are our solutions? What's our kind of pause in a game? Is it a scrum? Is it a line out? What do our conversations look like? And what do we do? So I think we possibly need to do that. I think if we weren't allowed to shout on or have a half time, my question would be, how would you coach? I think we would coach differently. I mean, another question actually, so let's get people to put it in the box. What percentage of your sessions, because it also buys me time to get a charger, what percentage of your sessions are co-created with the players? So how much of your session has input from players on what is meaningful to them while Rusty gets a charger? It's dark in England at the moment.
We got a couple of responses trickling in here. 10 to 15%. We've got a higher one, 30. A very honest answer, probably closer to 0. No shit. Yeah.
And then maybe the next thing to think about is, and I don't know what jobs people are doing, but if your current job gave you close to 0% autonomy or co-creation, would you still be doing that job? And you don't have to answer the question. I wouldn't be. So that's my reality. Individualism, I think, is the phrase of something that is very important to me, and so I would feel crushed if someone was micromanaging me, or we weren't doing stuff that was meaningful to me. So, yeah, probably just a useful thought experiment is, and it doesn't have to be too much. It might just be, look, kids, well, do you want to? I'm thinking of playing this game or this game. Which one do you want to do? And then for the warm up, this or this, or are you guys cool to run the warm up, or just. I just don't think we have time not to do that because, well, depending upon what we think the purpose of sport is, and I would say it's to, one of the things would be to create young people who can organize themselves and their lives and each other, then we possibly need to help support them with that. So that for me is the benefits. Let's go, Justin, next slide. I'm thinking there's some more slides. Cool. So I'm sure you've possibly seen this slide before. So we have an array of kind of practice designs available to us. We could do block practice. We could do small-sided games. I'm spending a lot of time top right. So metacognition is what we're going to talk about. Tactical warfare is, well, my team has a way of playing, and Jackie, your team has a way of playing. We don't know what the other person's is, and we've got to work it out. Well, that's the match. Jackie, how many times in your career did you play in training where one team had a different scoring system to another?
I don't think ever.
Cool. How many times did you play in a game where you didn't know what the opposition were going to do?
Well, almost. I'm most games, unless you've studied them quite a lot.
Let's call this tradition. Let's call this what I would say is tradition. Same for me. Every week we played a different team. Sometimes we predicted what they were going to do, but we forgot they trained in the week. They did some different stuff. And of course, we chatted after the game about what we should have done in the game because we weren't being coached to be adaptable. So that type of training for me is tactical, and those would be pretty much, even if I was doing a small-sided game, it would involve that stuff. If I was doing individual block practice, so clearly post-COVID, there's some stuff going on. So it might be that we're doing kicking and there's a dustbin over there and we've got different levels. Or we've got a certain number of lives, and once we've used our lives up, we choose, do we go 1, 2, 3, or 4, and we've got a minute and we see how many we can get. So just trying to bring it into most things, if I'm honest. Top right, I would have some skill games that you play regularly. We won't. So I think on the next slide, I think I'll put a video of the Saracens game. It's going to be really hard. No, it's not. It's not that one actually. Sorry. Justin, go back. It isn't the next one, but I would have a series of games that I would play a lot. I don't think we need to have loads and loads of games. I'm happy to share. I'll send them across to you, like videos of those games, and you can share them with the coaches. It just really simplifies stuff. We're going to play the Saracens game. Which level do you want to play? Saracens game's about kicking. All Blacks game's about transition. Best transition team in the world. High.
Oh, is he frozen for you too, Nathan?
Yet it's the most high value. It's the most high value moment in a game of rugby when the ball gets turned over. So have a series of games, and then bottom right, co-create stuff. This is us at Worcestershire Academy, co-creating some games with mums, dads, coaches, kids. The kids are leading it. Kids are telling us what they like and what they want. Actually, interestingly, the parents are also going, well, hang on, you didn't pick a resilience card, but you wanted to do all the creativity stuff. And so just really interesting just to see what parents value, what kids value, what coaches value. One common card that the kids picked across all 30 groups, and there was a lot of options. Make a player laugh or smile. And these are kids some of these kids are about to go and play county or England cricket, and they still want a bit of crack in training. Well, of course they do. It's cricket. I mean, for God's sake, a match lasts 5 days. Seriously, like, who's playing cricket?
Rusty, chat real quick about the cards that you're talking about, just so the folks if there are folks that don't know what they are.
Actually just created some more that are positional challenge cards, and we've just created some co-coaching ones. But these are actually, we made some bespoke ones for the cricket here, but we've got coach challenge cards and some player ones, and yeah, we got our website, themagicacademy.co.uk, and there's a store with some stuff on it. So we're just in the process of trying to create some more stuff, and they're really just a scaffold coaching. So the latest ones we're doing are positional. We're doing them in conjunction with some players. So Marcus Smith will design the fly half one and create a couple of videos as well, and it'll also give the coach some hints for how to coach a fly half. So we want to kind of make it a bit easier for the mum or dad, or who's got 10 minutes to prepare a session on a Sunday morning. So so a range of things with the intention of, and the coach challenge cards are my favorite, and I would describe them as 20 years of mistakes in one pack of cards. Like, seriously, I'm thinking, if only I'd had this 20 years ago, would have been awesome. So cool. That's it. The next slide, sorry, is just to think about coaching behaviors. And so maybe it's maybe just in the chat box, people put in what's one or two kind of what do you think are your kind of most important coaching behaviors? And this is a coach at Newcastle Falcons, England under 20, Jimmy Pondon. And this is kind of a map of, I think it's 25,000 interactions across a season. We're not saying any of this is right or wrong. We're just saying that this is the stuff Jimmy was doing. And then it probably leads to questions as to, well, Why so much of this? Why less of this? What are you doing when you're silent? Why is it taking you so long to explain the games? Actually, another great reason for having names for games, because reduces the time of going da 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 da. At Birmingham City, we call it the wedding speech. It's how long it takes you to get the kids going, and we take bets on it and we make it playful. And it's definitely coming down as we make it more playful, because it's definitely taking a long time at the start. I don't know what people are putting around, their coaching behaviors. Don't know if anyone's putting anything in.
We don't have anything coming in yet. Maybe just a clarification that if you were to,
what are the coaching behaviors that you think, and these are crucial?
The ability to ask a good question.
I would say questioning would be very high up. Not a question that they go bang, but a question that, as you just did, that you looked up and you thought, I need to think a bit about this. Generally, questions I don't know the answer to. What else are you thinking about? This type of question. Nathan, what are you thinking about?
I'm actually trying to gather whether or not the silence piece is one of the more important parts, and in the sense that I wonder what it is that has to be or should be done in that silence. Maybe not should, maybe that's even the wrong word in terms of should, but
what are you thinking? What could be going on in the silence?
Right. And so, and if I was to say, can I get players to, through questioning, to use some of that silence on their own to come up with whatever it is we're trying to achieve prior to then, getting back from our pause and going back into our activity.
Yeah, nice. So I think it's this. I think noticing is the most important skill. So what I think the silence is about where do you stand? What do you notice? How intentionally are you? Rusty, why aren't you looking at the kids that are struggling? So that would be my bias. I'm excited by the kids that are killing it, and I'm missing out on some opportunity to coach some other kids. And feedback. So now whatever feedback is, feedback might be like awesome. It might just be a look. It might be a more in-depth conversation. It might be creating a peer-to-peer interaction. Once again, how do you know what's having impact? So find out, notice, look, ask. That would be my view. I've definitely had some coaches give me some feedback in a way that wasn't very helpful, and I probably had very little support on receiving feedback, if I'm honest. So I guess for me, before all of this, so practice design, video game design or gamification is part of it, and then coaching behaviors. The only two things we control: where we put the codes, what activity we organize, and then what we do as coaches. Now, we could definitely have a bit of interesting debate around, like, well, if me, you, Nathan, and you, Jack, coach together, then there's some dynamics there as well, and we'd have to be intentional around co-coaching.
Of course, yeah.
And people don't is to think, look, if the three of us coached and we coached for an hour and we were only allowed 14 interactions with the kids, what are we getting rid of? And what are we keeping and why?
That's a great question. That's a great personal challenge to do. Like if you for personal professional
let's
development.
Say after 4. Yeah. So and I think it ties in nicely with the Jean Coté stuff around.
Sure.
And how are they going to fit into your 11? So just a thought experiment. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of set the scene. Let's go next one because I'm mindful of time already. I'm cool. I can stay as long as you want. So I'm going to send this video. This is a Saracens game video, so you don't need to play it, Nathan. This is just to show what some of our games look like. We can go on to the next one.
Give me one moment.
Maybe bottom left, maybe where the next. There we go. Cool. So I think it would be worth playing this one. This is a gamification one. So we go back to the previous video, and maybe people can kind of put in the chat box the stuff that they they're like, or
okay, I will hit play. Here we go.
what you'll see is both teams will be given one of these, and they're on level 1. 32 points to win this level. Now there's 2 cards. The other one needs more points than this, so I'll get them to choose. Do you want to do the easy level or the hard level? I'm always interested in which one they go for. Yeah, so first game is a banking game. Often we'll play games where we're trying to make a certain number of passes in an area. What we've decided to think about doing is you have the opportunity to save progress, so they have an opportunity to bank. So my team might make 4 or 5 passes and bank it. The other team might have a go and we might touch you before you bank it, so you're still on 0. So it's really focusing on a few things. One is decision making on, do I pass or do I take it in almost? You can almost do it like a ruck. The other thing is your off the ball work. So the game is 90% off the ball. So if you're a winger on a wet day, it's 100%. So actually one of those players doing off the ball to find space when the team's got the ball, or to reduce options when they don't have the ball. What's your superpower? So you're allowed an offside player. It's a question. Cool. I think hopefully people got that. Oh, it's going. We're still going.
Want me to keep going there, Rusty?
Go on. Who do you think on that team will notice, and who do you think will adapt? So you guys got a superpower, you're allowed an offside player. Awesome. And is the offside player allowed to score?
Yeah, of course.
Of course, yes. I feel like often I need to nudge them a little bit around pauses. This group were pretty good at it. Do you think you could have paused? Do you think you missed some opportunities to pause? Do you think a pause would be useful now? So yeah, I think it's probably an amalgamation of everything really. It took the saving progress, the banking from the first game. We then had some pause stuff that we then put into it. 1, 2, 2. Go, what do you want to pause for? Go, you can have a group chat.
If you hear someone blank.
They're imaginary points. However, you can actually start to use those points as currency. So one of the other things I've been playing around with is actually if you get a certain number of points, then you can buy something. Now, you might buy a smaller try line for the opposition, or you might buy a Ben referee, Rusty, who referees them badly, or you might buy, the next game, they're going to start on -7 points. So that's another area I'm probably exploring is, if people are playing on FIFA or games like that, they have money and they have decisions upon how they spend that money to win games tactically. Cool. So, I didn't put anything in the box on that. What were you thinking, Nathan? I saw you come alive.
No, mate, I wanted to apologize because I heard pause on the video and I thought you were telling me to pause the video.
Nice. What is anyone putting stuff in the box, or what are you guys thinking about?
Yeah, we had a comment from a coach saying they used banking versus turn and burn or double or nothing quite a bit with a U13 group, and just said the kids loved it and had really good conversations about their decision making.
That's cool. That's awesome to hear. I think banking is like my favorite thing with the kids because it's risk reward. And when they're doing a turn and burn, so, as you can turn and play the other way, and you might say it's 1 point for a try, and if you turn and burn, it's worth 5, but you'd lose the 1. They're kind of thinking, do we go? And I might pause it and go, cool, pause. And they'll go, no, Rusty, we're banking it. I'll be like, I'll give you 20 points. No, we're banking it. 100 points. Oh, we're going, Rusty, we're going. Oh, we lost it. So I just love the kind of just getting to understand where risk reward sits for them. And I think it's a real interesting one with teenage, and it's also an interesting one to go, well, hang on a second, actually freeze, close your eyes, put your hand up if you think your team should bank it, and actually just to see if we're seeing the same thing or not. And if we've got 2 kids that are trying to bank it and 10 that, actually let's go, well, what have you seen? Well, actually, they've got really good defense set up. So I think it just leads to really interesting conversations. That's cool. That's someone's doing it.
Rusty,
What's that?
I was going to say, can I ask whether or not you've seen players take the pause approach, notably in a 15s game when we have breaks in the game setting up for a set piece?
Yeah, so one of the origins of a lot of this stuff was actually when So it was a few years ago, England played Italy, and I think Ben Youngs broke his leg. And it took them, I think it was 9 or 11 minutes to get him off the pitch. And there was a high camera on the stadium, and it was looking down at the England players who were basically dicking around. Like international players in a match, opportunity to sort some stuff out, just like messing around. It actually happened again, interesting. So I'm going to come back to, so ball out of play. Our sport is 50% ball out of play at least. And so what are we doing to coach those moments? It actually happened in the World Cup final, semi-final. Two England line out, 2 huddles. Ben Youngs went over with the backs. He came over to the line out, didn't speak to any forwards, thought it was a drive. All the England backs were set up for a drive. They threw it off the top to him and it went forward. And it's interesting, isn't it, that even at that level in a pretty significant World Cup game, we still quite haven't worked out how this communication stuff works. So the answer is yes, because I would try and scaffold them and go, look, what do these moments look like in games? And if we're going to have a huddle in a game, give me 2 or 3 things that would be really important. What would be the principles? So they might say, if let's say Jackie's speaking, then we all listen. And at the end, actually, we're going to go away with one thing we're going to guarantee. And perhaps there's a role with the younger kids of going, look, within each team, there's one person who's the kind of summarizer, and there's one person who's in charge of making sure everyone else listens, whatever it is. But whatever you think is useful for your team, I think it's definitely worth practicing that stuff, because I still speak to international players and club players who go, so I'll say, what goes on under the posts? We just argue. Half the team aren't in. One team, it's a Super Rugby team. He said, Rusty, what do you think about this? Our players do breathing exercises under the posts. For so long, they don't speak. It's like, why are they doing, it's like, what's more important? It's like, you've probably got some stuff to speak about when you're under the posts, would be my view. Now, I'm not averse to people breathing. I think it's important. However, I don't know. So, yeah, look, clearly, I think that's a great point, Nathan, is how do you then connect up what they're doing now with the game? So it might be that you only allow, I've never thought of it like this, so maybe you only allow pauses when it's a pause that you would get that chance in a game. And actually they then have a kind of conversation. It's tough with the teenage boys because they want to pick pauses to cheat. So yeah, look, this is just a bit of a slide really, and I don't know if I shared this. I can definitely share this. This is a GoPro'd up session, and just some stuff that I think is useful for me. I would have co-coaching cards, so other people, the players pick the scoring system on the whiteboard, and then went off on their stuff. Players start the session, so I would always go, you guys get a game going. I want to get activity going quickly. I want to see what's meaningful to them. So if they play Bulldogs, then I can turn Bulldogs into other games quite quickly. I can throw a couple of balls in. I wanted to understand what would be a good mission for this team. Stuff that I was trying to notice was individuals. Who's finding it easy? Who's finding it hard? Who do I think I'm going to stress out quite quickly? And on this one, there was quite a stressed out. He wasn't such a young man. So we had a real conversation, a good conversation around the smiling. What does problem solving look like? What does off the ball look like? So it's 90% of the game. As coaches, we're generally focused on the ball. How much information sharing is going on? I was going to gamify, but with choice. So I was going to go, right, if you've achieved level 1, what does level 2 look like? Cool, what superpower do you want? And then within the session, I was going to coach individuals. I'm still going to coach. So I might do, look, do you guys want to have another go at that? Do you want to replay? So my kind of explanation of a replay is, coaches, when you're saying unlucky, you probably mean replay. So someone tweeted today and said, yeah, but no wonder forwards don't kick. The players and the coaches will nominate them for Dick of the Day. And I'm thinking, why don't they just let them have another go? Why don't they give them a replay and support them? Who wants to be called Dick of the Day because they messed up the kick? I don't think that person's ever going to kick again. I actually don't think that's a useful coaching intervention. That's not a good learning environment. So I'm still going to go, replace and pauses. And then in this one, I was also, and I can't remember what it was. I'm always thinking what the huddles look like because we're kind of trapped in this huddle world. So I think what I did in this one was, if let's say, Jackie, your team called the pause, Rusty, your team had a huddle, Nathan's team had a huddle, but if you called the pause, Nathan's team were allowed to send a spy over. So they could go over and listen. I might then go, right, cool, we're going in 3, 2, 1, but I wouldn't let the spy go back and speak while there was time. I would go, cool, the game's going, off you go. Back, you got to tell them while the game's on the run type stuff. And there was a real interesting one in at the BC conference this year where we told one guy all the information. So we picked this real big Islander kid because he looked like the kid least likely to tell anyone. And so we just pulled him out the coaches and said, oh, look, just so you know, this is the opposition scoring system and this is how you can win the game. So this was just and so did this with him, all the coaches. We said, mate, off you go, back in the game. 15 minutes later, he hadn't told a soul. And that's the other thing we've got to think about with all of this, with the problem solving is, it's often the kid that's saying nothing that's seen everything. And we just don't ask them, or we speak, me and Nathan are speaking really loudly and we're da-da-da-da-da. And Jackie's thinking, yeah, I probably know the answer, but I don't want to look like a bit, I don't want to be wrong type stuff. And Jackie's got all the gold and me and Nathan are like, oh yeah, we sorted this out. We're just going to go harder. We're just going to, and Jackie's saying, you guys are so stupid.
I always have the answers, Rusty.
Yeah,
exactly.
We have a question about huddles. Is there ever a scenario where you wouldn't let one team huddle? Like you would only let one team huddle and not the other? Yeah,
that's great. I mean, look, and I think my maybe my reframe to coaches is, if I said to you, no huddle could ever be the same, what would you say? Come up with, and maybe just tell the players. So you might go, well, actually, we're going to leave 5 players out of the huddle. Or you might go, look, the huddle needs to look like something in a game. So actually, the huddle is waiting for Nathan to take a shot at goal, and we're all in a line. Or we might go, the huddle is we send a spy across. Or I just think different ways of kind of doing it, because reality is, how often do we get together and have a proper huddle in a game? Same again, forwards and backs, separate huddles, go. Cool, we're back in the game. Maybe then stop the game 2 minutes in and go, forwards, what did the backs talk about? Oh, we haven't got a clue. I was in a Wasps meeting before lockdown, and Jimmy Gopworth was talking about defence. He's a decent player, and one of the he was speaking about the back row. So the back row needed the back row, and I thought, and it's really typical. It's backs and forwards separate meeting, and at the end of the meeting, someone could have gone, cool, what are we going to go and do now? What do we need to do now as a result of this meeting? Well, we need to go and speak to the back row for starters. And no one did, because that's kind of how we do stuff in sports sometimes.
Rusty, we're just Jackie and I are just conscious of time. I'm going to offer our participants a couple of moments here to come up with maybe one riveting question we can ask.
Yeah, just flip on to, if we just go a couple of slides on, and I'll just show you.
And I was just going to say, Rusty, what do you want maybe to finish off on with this presentation?
The one slide that has the principles on this slide. So if you go back to it, so this slide for me is the stuff I've probably spoken about. My advice would be, signpost it. Some stuff's going to go wrong. Just drip feed it in. So that sounds awesome that someone's playing around with banking. I love it. Play around with levels. So even if you're just playing a game, go, look, well, what would the next level of this game look like? And you just get some real good insight from a question like that. Superpowers, pausing, changed my world. I'm thinking, oh my God, you guys paused then. That's awesome. I didn't even see that. But we could also play a game around, you're allowed 3 pauses. And I'm going to imagine when I would have paused it as well. And we'll have a chat about that at the end. So I don't have to pause, but I can definitely be thinking about when I would pause as a coach. and we can have a discussion around what they saw or what I didn't see. Banking, I love. I'll send you the banking game. It's a game changer for me. And then, yeah, using currency, which I'm playing around with a bit. So I might play a series of games. There's $1 million for each game. And, if you have $2 million, so you've won 2 games, then you can buy a bent referee, or you can buy a smaller try line for the opposition, or just stuff that gives tactical problems. And that for me is also where the psychosocial comes in, because there's a bent referee, and or well, it's not fair. We've only got half the try line they've got. Well, what are you going to do about it? And we just get some of the teenage stuff going on, which I'm definitely excited about.
Rusty, mate, honestly, thanks so much for bearing with us during some of the technical stuff. For our participants, we did have a couple of test sessions here to try and make sure we got everything going, and then we still ended up having some issues. So, Rusty, thanks for bearing with us. I think we did actually get through all the slides, which is fantastic because we got through.
No, that's cool. If anyone wants to reach out on anything, just drop me a line. Like, I'm on Twitter, or my email address, rusty@themagicacademy.co.uk. Just drop me a line. I'll always kind of get back to people, and every time I have an interaction, I learn some stuff. So that's cool. Really appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, it's also quite late for you, so we appreciate you taking the time. Folks,
I'm wired now. I can't get to sleep. I'm wired.
I'm gonna say, yeah, you're gonna be up half the night. We're taking your sleep away from you here.
Folks, if you do have any additional questions, you can reply to your registration link, and Jackie or I can forward messages along to Rusty, or we can, address anything else that might be needed. We have next week Mike Heaslop from World Rugby, who's going to give us a hand with our activation program, World Rugby Activation. So he's going to demo some of the activities that we hope will be very relevant to clubs as we get back to reopening rugby. And as Jackie mentioned, we're almost there. So Rugby Canada's lifted our sanction on rugby activities. Please do reach out to your provincial union to see what you are able to do within your province. And I think that touches on everything. So Jackie, Rusty, thanks for your time. Any last words from either of you?
No, thanks for having. Well done, you guys, on not having Boris Johnson as your Prime Minister, because we are a very long way away from where you guys are. Oh my days.
We're all working through things. I think we've all I think there are boneheads in on every continent, unfortunately.
Apart from New Zealand, apart from Jacinda.
You're right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's
okay,
fair.
folks, have a great night. Thanks once again.
Well, thanks everyone.
Thanks a lot, Rusty.
Cheers.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, guys. Well done. We got through the glitch. I'll if you do me a favor now.